dive in together. Well, welcome friends in the Enneagram community. I don't know about you, but I am grateful for a tool that provides language and a common space, no matter where we're coming from, that we can come together, and so really value being with you in this space. We do have some great things happening in the Great Lakes region, and so I want to share just a few of those with you. You can follow us on Facebook at Enneagram Great Lakes. And so I'll also be posting these links in the sidebar for you to where you can copy the links and check out anything you're interested in more information about. But we've got online opportunities. Marcy Maderi in our region is offering some great things through her through LaGrange, Illinois, but it's online in this season called The Well. There's just some Enneagram panels. Teresa McCloy, that serves on our board, and myself have real life online Enneagram circles. And so if you're wanting to use the Enneagram in your workspace and longing for that collaborative community, we'd love for you to check out Enneagram circles. And then Connie Frecker also has some great Enneagram and relationship workshops coming up. They are on site in August. So if you're ready to get back into the world and engage, there's some on-site trainings as well. And then we have some certification and accredited training that's available as well. And so Clare Loughrige just completed an outstanding first opportunity online, but it is a go right now for October in Marshall, Michigan. She is going to be offering her Enneagram Motions of the Soul training and certification. And so check that out in Marshall, Michigan. It is an incredible experience personally, and then for you to apply into your life. And then Dr. Wagner has postponed his trainings for this season, but we're excited to be able to have an opportunity for you to connect with Dr. Wagner virtually at the IEA Regional Conference that we're going to be hosting virtually on July the 25th. And the lineup is just outstanding. And so with that, I will post those links in the sidebar. Make sure you can save the chat if you'd like and grab any extra information on that. But I'm going to turn it over to Claire and anything you'd like to add, Claire, about the conference.
Yes, so we are going completely online as we announced last month. And, you know, I realize that all of us have a different perspective around these days of pandemics. And I love that this is a space where we welcome all that is in the room and try to bring one another along with truth and grace. You may have seen that the conference has a change in lineup with the allegations surrounding Christopher Hewarts. And we just want you to know that while Chris willingly stepped down from both our conference and the board, both the board and our conference committee wanted to affirm that that was the right decision. And we hold all of the victims in loving care. We are grieved with the Enneagram community in all the ways that each of us are experiencing this moment. And we also know that the Enneagram is a transformative model that can bring people to greater and greater levels of health and wholeness when they do that inner work. And I want to just say that if we ever needed to do our inner work, it is right now. And with all of the ways that we're experiencing the pandemics of our time, we have learned practices that provide us a way to regulate and are able to give us ways to open and to practice empathy and to be curious and to stand in our own truth, to allow our individual voices to be heard, that while we can say we land in one of the 9 types as a dominant style, we're all very individual with the stories of our 9 types. While we may say that we all land in a particular center, head, heart, or body, we all experience life and all that it brings very differently, very uniquely. As my dad used to say, it's a long way to heaven. And on this really long journey, we need some faithful guides to help us to work through these moments where reactivity and automatic responses are just what we've done to survive, but they are not necessarily helpful. So, inviting Leslie to be with us on this day in our gratitude for being together, in our grief with what's happening in our world, that we can have practices that help us open up all three centers of intelligence. And what you need to know about Leslie is she's been doing this three-centered work for over 20 years. She's not a newbie. And I mean, she's certainly young and gorgeous, but she's not a kid to the work of the Enneagram. She's a master teacher among us and has studied theology and the Enneagram and the narrative tradition. She's the former editor of the 9 Points magazine, and a gracious presence to welcome those who have younger voices and older voices to be a part of the conversation, those who've been on very different parts of the spiritual journey, those who've been in the dark night of the soul. Leslie, I'm allowed to say this, but Leslie helped me process my dad's death in a spiritual direction session that was really a marker for me in a way to open up what my body was wanting to say to me about my grief. And so I welcome Leslie, and especially this morning, lesliehershberger.com. You got to check out her stuff because there are ways that she offers grace to this community and handles with the Enneagram that are just helpful for our souls in these moments and beyond. But I asked her to open us up with a practice in addition to talking to us about the three centers, and then open up some time maybe for some question and response. But we will trust you as our teacher and our guide today through these deep weeds of life that we find ourselves in.
Yeah. Thank you, Claire. Hi, everyone. It's really good to be with you all. Just to see your faces, some familiar faces, some familiar names where I don't see the faces, but just really glad to see you. So thanks for being here. And I would like to just, we're going to be talking a lot today about feelings. And when I talk about feelings, I'm talking about what's going on in the body. And I'm going to just want to share with you how I work with different people so you can, and this is what I'm going to be doing a lot more of at the conference, but how do you work if you're a coach or a spiritual guide or a spiritual director with others, and how do you work on yourself? And understanding these three centers and doing a 2-year research program, or actually it's a 2-year research project, I should say, with 2 other women. I asked a heart type and a body type. So it was an 8, a 2, and moi, who's a 7, a social 7, because I wanted to get the felt experience of these centers from them. So it wasn't because with me as a head type, I can just really rock and roll with the research, and I really wanted to connect it to real live human experience, because that's what's changed me, is understanding my felt experience. Because as a head type, I can get into cataloging it really clearly, but I've left me. I've left what's going on for me. So what I'd like to invite you to do right now is to take a look at the faces that you see and the names, because some people, we don't see their faces, but we see their names. And if you could just notice right now, if you could pause and notice what happens inside of you as you look at each of these faces. What do you notice? Are you inside yourself? Are you up out to the faces? Are you getting curious maybe about their story? Or are you noticing what's happening in your body as you look at each of these faces? And did you hear my voice? What's going on in your body? Notice the difference if you're in your head, building a story, in your heart, kind of that heart center that wants to connect. And the invitation right now is what's happening in your body, in your felt experience. So now take a moment and look around the room and notice what it's like when you remove your vision from the faces and just kind of look around the room. And maybe look out the window, where when I look out, I can see my trees. I'm part of something larger when I see the trees outside. All right. And I can look at my mind, the table right next to me is a mess, and I can feel myself future, like, okay, I want to clean. Okay, come back. All right, you're going to notice that. Okay. So now allow your eyes to close. All right. And if you're not comfortable closing your eyes, let them drop. The purpose is to rid yourself of external stimulation. Okay. And so notice what happens when you close your eyes. And see if you can notice the sounds in the room. And notice the difference between the thought of sounds and the actual sound. Now, can you hear the sound of your own breathing? And once again, noticing the difference between the thought of your breath and the sound of your breathing. Now, to gather your awareness, can you bring your attention to the far wall of the room while your eyes are closed? The center of the room. Book reading distance. Now in and down inside yourself, down through your throat, and noticing any sensations in your throat. And when you can feel a sensation in your throat, lift your right forefinger if you can. Just kind of a cue to yourself that I can feel it. And body time is slower than head time, so it might take a moment. Can you feel your jaw? Sensations. And when you tap into the sensation in your jaw, once again, lift your right forefinger. Your shoulders, where we often carry the weight of the world, where we can feel sometimes the heaviness or lightness in our shoulders. And now dropping your attention to your heart. And for some people I work with, it can take them 2 years to feel their body. So being really kind to yourself if you can't feel your body. And dropping into your heart. Can you feel sensation in your heart? And if not, can you simply feel your shirt touching your chest? Start there. Breathing in and breathing out. The body is a container for our experience. And now can you drop your awareness a few fingers below your belly? Notice the expansion on the inhale and the contraction on the exhale. And notice the difference between the thought of breathing and the actual felt sense of breathing. We live in bodies. They are the front line of our human experience. And we are hearing about this so much. Oftentimes in spiritual life, we want to transcend experience. And that has its purpose. But right now, it feels like in this time of collective pain, our bodies have a lot to say. Can you find a sensation in your body? And once you do, raise your right forefinger for yourself. And welcome it with kindness, compassion for yourself. This is your lived experience. Can you bring your awareness to Claire's announcement of what is going on with the keynote, Chris Hurt's And notice what happens in your body. And welcome it with kindness for yourself. Without trying to explain it, if you jump into the head, notice that and simply come back to your body, of noticing how it lands in you. This news, and bringing your awareness to the Great Lakes community, holding the container for this conference that's coming, and all the complexities that they're holding. The stories people have told. And breathe into that with kindness for yourself without having to try to explain it or figure it out. Simply be with your lived experience in this moment. And now bringing your awareness to what's happening on our planet with this confluence of the pandemic, and what is arising in our collective field as we deepen our collective complicity and awareness with racism that lives inside of us, our parents, our grandparents, and all of our ancestors throughout time in our DNA. Notice what's happening in your body. And can you place your attention on your heart? Notice when your attention is stabilized on your heart, and open yourself to kindness for yourself and for the pain. Of these stories we're hearing that have always been there through time. And we're seeing them in a lived way in our bodies right now. And can you invite that spiritual quality of compassion, presence into your body right now? Notice where it lands in your body. Is it in your heart, your solar plexus? Do you feel a buzzing in your hands, a tightening in your jaw? Just notice. And for some people, sometimes you have to even put your hand on your heart. That actually shifts something in the brain when the hand is on the heart. We're learning from neurobiologists. And can you touch that heart, your heart, and allow it to connect to the wider heart of this collective field? In these times. Now bring your attention back to your body in the chair, feeling the weight of the chair supporting you. And when you're ready, but only when you're ready, allow your eyes to open. And when they open, look around the room and allow yourself to reorient yourself in the room. That I'm in this room. It's solid. And then allow yourself to look at one another in this space, where each person in front of us is having a different experience right now. And it lives in our bodies. And that's the real core of the teaching that, and when I talk about how I work with clients, this is a real core piece. And I have to tell you, y'all, this is new for me. When I think of the trajectory of the Enneagram, I was probably introduced to somatics maybe about 10, 11 years ago. It's relatively new. When I think of it's funny, I've been part of a 20-year learning community, and I listen to our old tapes of the learning community, and we sound like a bunch of heads on a stick, quite frankly. Our Enneagram teacher, my teacher is Helen Palmer, and I listen to the tapes of myself, and I'm thinking, oh my God, Leslie, stop talking. Just stop, slow, like stop. And so it's like we can hear, this shift, and I hear I hear them now. It's like the next step was almost moving into the body to feel our bodies, and now we're really focusing on that lived experience of the heart of connection. And what I find is if I can be in 3-centered presence, I'm with you in a different way. I'm with what's happening out there in a different way, because it's more embodied. Because as a head type, I can come to theories so fast it'll make your head spin. And I want to tell you a story. My daughter lived in El Salvador for 5 years. And I remember going down there when I was getting a master's, or I was in a master's program for integral theory, which is a map of human consciousness, which is great for a head type. That means everything gets explained into one meta theory, and I feel secure in the world. Got it, good, done, right? So I go down there and I'm watching her work, and I'm going with her to all of these different places. And I start giving her some advice, which, as you can imagine, she's my daughter and she loved, from the perspective of integral theory and the stages that I'm seeing play out here. And you know what she said to me? She's a 9, feeling this stuff in her bodies. And she said, you sure do know a whole lot, Mom, for having been here for 3 days. And it was like a big old gobsmack, kind of embarrassing. And she was right. And I could feel it. And it was like, it up here, Mom. You've got your meta theory, you got the Enneagram, you got it all figured out. And I'm boots on the ground here. I'm here in relationality. And with all of what we're talking about right now, all of these complexities happening right now, this stuff is challenging. It's not easy. So that's how I want to approach today. And Claire, I wanted to ask you, do you want to do this like, from a conversational perspective? Do you want me to just kind of dive in? Tell me what you would like. Tell me what you'd like here.
Yeah. So I really appreciated the opening with this kind of meditation that then can open the gateway for you to talk about our reactivity in moments like this. This kind of hook or automatic response in the midst of really troubling times. And I appreciate your daughter's words, I'm boots on the ground, this relational experience. And I think many of us might want to even get one of those thoughts in mind right now, where your relational world is actually experienced the reactivity of you during this pandemic, and we'll notice without judgment. We're not gonna be unkind to ourselves. But as you say that, an immediate story came up for me with my son during this pandemic and my relating with him in my ungrounded, uncentered moment. And so, we'd love for you to unpack what that might look like.
Yeah.
And the invitation to stay centered in our bodies and let the story come up, kind of that hit me in my jaw, and I pushed out my lower lip, like I was just sad and pouting about that. Yeah. And so, just want to invite us all to hear these words, but from an embodied experience that we're connecting it in real time, in ways that we know we have been our most beautiful, all the glory and all the grime has been showing. So,
as Ken Wilber called it, the dignity in disaster, right? Being human, which I kind of love. So this is what I'll do, y'all. I'm going to show you some slides, and since I'm a head type, I can do kind of like this information dump. And so what I want to do is I want to check in with you. So I'm going to show something, and then I'm going to just check in. And if you have any questions in the chat, put them in the chat as I share. And so I want to talk with you a little bit of how I work with people and how I approach the centers. And hopefully this can offer you, I mean, if you work with people, this might help you. And also, you know, it can help you work on yourself. So I'm going to share the screen right now and show you my, my slides here, okay? So what in working with people, the first thing is to understand that we live in bodies, and they're hardwired survival instincts. Okay, this is really important for you to know that anger is normal. I don't know if that baby's angry. He could have gas. I'm not sure, but I love that picture. And, you know, just to show some anger here, right? And then we have fear, and then we have panic. And the Enneagram really looks at those, what might be called afflictive emotions, all right? So we have to do something. There's something, you know, like anger, fear, and panic. Yeah.
We're not seeing that slide.
You're not. Ah, I wonder why. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share for a minute, and I'm going to start again, all right?
Yeah.
And let me know. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. All right. So there's anger, fear, panic. If you've ever seen little babies, this is normal, right? Anger, that things aren't the way I want them to be. Fear, you know, and panic. And panic is at loss of connection. All right. So when someone comes in, I'm looking at what is their lean. And when I'm working on myself, I look at what's my lean right now. What am I doing? And I'm going to give you some examples to help. So if a head type walks in, 5, 6, and 7, they're driven by the core emotion of fear. Now, here's where it gets wonky. I had somebody write to me during the pandemic, right at the beginning stages, I think I might be a 6. I've got a lot of fear. Everybody's got fear when we first discover this virus that sounds horrific, all right? It doesn't, head types don't only have fear. Everyone has fear. It's a normal evolutionary need, all right? The heart, so, but what head types try to do is they kind of lead with fear, and in a place of fear, we gather empirical data. We try to figure it out. We try to we really fine tune our perceptual function. So head types kind of want to come in and want to figure it out, want to get them, kind of like when I went to El Salvador, I didn't know my body was overwhelmed, you know? And when I told my daughter, you know, some people get diarrhea, I had the opposite, like for days. That's stress. You know, and I was like unaware of it. And, you know, the body, I'm like, Mom, that's kind of because you're here. I didn't know it. I went to my head and applied integral theory to it because I was overwhelmed by what I was experiencing. Now, the heart people come in, and it's about connection. So during this time, it was really interesting. I did this like 6-week class, 5 or 6 week class, just supporting people through the pandemic. I had more 3s than I've ever had. Ever before, right? Because they weren't out being able to do, so feelings were coming up. Because if you'll remember those early days, I mean, Zoom was a brand new thing. We were figuring it all out. So what happens with heart types when they come in, they manage the environment by how can I connect? And there's a lot of that socialized mirroring. And I'm going to talk a little more about that in a moment. Now, body types come in and they have strong feelings of vulnerability. All right. These are people of passion. All right. And anger and its protective function is much more familiar than more vulnerable emotions. I'm married to a body type. If he starts having feelings, anger's the first one. If he feels sad, it shows up as anger. If he feels scared, it shows up as anger. All right, because that feels much more safe. It's I don't want to lose control. And anger is a way I can manage it and kind of build a boundary and defense system. All right. So that when people walk in, or now it's on Zoom, they're not coming into my office as you know anymore. I'm not seeing people personally. It's on Zoom. But that's what I keep in my mind. The heart type wants to connect on Zoom first. All right. So I want to make a really important distinction here right now. And if any of you have seen this before, this is core to how I work with people. Feeling is what we just did. So I want to, when I'm talking about feelings, that's what I'm talking about. Feeling is what I just did in our inner practice. Like, what are you noticing when I say the words pandemic in your body? It rises from deep within. It's genuine, a felt sense. So maybe a heart type might come to me though, and they may not want me to know. If I'm a 3, for instance, I may not want to tell you that I feel kind of incompetent right now. If I'm a person who presents in front of a lot of people, if I'm a pastor, if I'm a leader in some way, I don't know how to do this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hi, yeah, Leslie, I'm doing all right. It's been hard, but things are hard. And I might have a few quotes or things that I've read that other people say that I respect and this kind of thing, but it's a constructed response. It's staged, it's acted out. We all do it. It's like, how many of you, raise your hand if you've never said, when someone says, how are you doing? And you say fine, and you're not fine. It's constructed, right? Everyone does it. Because if I really told you that I'm really scared because my kids may lose their jobs, that's too damn vulnerable. So I'm just going to say, yeah, it's good, but it's hard for everyone. I'm having some stress. It's hard for everyone. That's constructed. That's sentiment. Does that make sense? And if it doesn't, feel free, again, add it in the chat because we'll talk more about that. But feeling is what's happening in the body. So when someone walks into my office or when we're working together, I am aware that what's going on the inside is not what I might be seeing on the outside. So I can't judge the inner by the outer. Now with long time of working with people, I can start to, you're going to get, the more you become aware of your body, and I think inner practice does that, and contemplative practice does that, you're going to be stronger at seeing what's going on for someone else. You're going to be able to fine tune your awareness of what's happening for someone else. The body tells a lot of stories. So I want to talk about this body. We all have it. I don't care what center we are, but this is where the body types really live. And this is my friend Clare, who is an 8. She talked about it. She said, feeling is the ground of awareness itself. It's, what we become aware of as we explore our life. It's the truth of our experience, the root of it. And what we're learning through somatic experiencing training, which I've taken some of that. I've took part 1 of somatic experiencing training, where we're really looking how trauma lives in the body. We're learning a lot about understanding generational trauma lives in the body, meaning what was happening for my parents when I was born? What was happening for your parents when you were born? What was happening if you have children? What was happening in your life? And when they were, if you're a woman in the body, right? What was happening? And then we're learning that generational trauma is carried in the body. It's the root of our experience. It's the life force energy. It's the moment by moment awareness of what does it feel like to be alive right now. So when someone walks in my office, I am aware that the body is the source level, the ground of their experience right now. And it's not always what they're saying to me. It's what's going on inside. And all 9 types need to return to the body for a real sense of growth and authenticity. We have to work and start with the body. It's my incarnation, my fully aliveness. So are there any questions?
So Leslie, let me have you pause right there. So one of the things that I experienced with you, and I'm sure you do this regularly with people, is I began to tell you the story. And I was telling you the story, and you just and the story was really important because I needed to convey the whole thing to you, right? And you stopped me and just said, where are you carrying that in your body right now? And so I think for people, as you said, that it took them 2 years to even feel their heart. there is something that can feel overwhelming right now in this idea that if I have to drop the story and feel the feelings. One trauma survivor said to me, if I go there, I'm probably never going to come back. Like if I get in that, if I go to that trauma, if I enter what my body felt, I don't know if I can ever return. Yes. So how would you say you'd walk with someone in that moment that this is scary stuff?
This is scary stuff. Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about that for a moment. I'm going to stop the share for a moment. This is a really important question. It's always, the movement into the body is always an invitation. It's not I might say to someone, drop the story, notice what's going on. And if they say, I'm scared, right? So what I will say, Claire, first of all, if there's trauma, it's different. All right. So what I'm aware of when someone comes in is there could be, the body's not a safe place. And so that's one of the first things. And a lot of times what I'll do with somebody is we'll work side by side. I might be working with them on Enneagram work and they're working with a trauma therapist or a somatic therapist. And so it's kind of starting to learn the language of the body. So it might be something like, open your eyes now and reorient back into the room because now I'm safe. Can you feel that I'm safe right now in the room? All right. And the other thing, where they get oriented back here, where I'm in a holding container right now and I'm safe. And then it might be an invitation. Do you want to go back in? All right. The other thing, Claire, that I've really learned, oh my gosh, I learned, y'all, is to not bring them into the body too fast. And that's one of the biggest things I've really learned in working with people. And heart types, I typically don't like to do it too early on, unless I know somebody's got some spiritual capacity. Why? Because they haven't connected with me yet. They need to know that we have a connection and that I see them. I'll never forget doing it too early with a 4. She never came back. All right. So these are all of these things that, in understanding this, just to be really tender around the lived experience of what's happening in the body. So it might be, can you allow a teaspoon of awareness, like notice the tension in your jaw? That might feel safer. The other thing I really learned is that body types, oftentimes, just because they're body types, they can get overwhelmed by feelings in their body. I do a lot of grief work with people. Body types can feel overwhelmed by the body. All right. With heart types, the first thing I do is I make the connection. And then I'll explain this body stuff to them. After they tell me some of their story, I'll explain some of this to them. I might even teach them, show them some of the slides, and then say, do you want to give it a try? Do you want to come inside and just notice? And we might start with pleasant sensations first. Can you find a teaspoon of where you feel life force, right? But what happens for heart types, because you all are so, and I'm going to share my screen again here, and just, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So heart types, you're about connection. It's the human need we all have to connect through social mirroring. And it's the next stage up in evolution. So the baby feels their feelings, right? Now, I don't know if you've ever seen, I highly recommend a YouTube video called the Still Face Experiment, in which a baby is trying to connect with mama, and then mama turns away from the baby, and you see the baby's anxiety. And if you watch that video, if we had more time, I'd show it to you. But notice what happens in you when mom turns away. Because the baby's panicked. The baby's trying to do all sorts of tricks and cuteness to get mom's connection. And mom doesn't see the baby. That's what we humans are. That lives in us. It's like, I'm going to show you a trick. It's like if I'm talking with y'all and none of you smile and you're all looking mad, I'm going to have a physical reaction to that. Or if y'all look a little disgusted, or like, oh God, or confused. I'll never forget the first time I was teaching a class and I gave too much information and a woman was sitting here like this. You know, I could feel her fear, right? It was too much. Okay. So the heart is, and this is what heart types are really good at, is sensing the other person's experience. Am I getting mirrored? Am I getting reflected back? So when I'm with heart types, I have to make sure I see you and reflect you back to yourself. Okay. And I can't, you know, I may not feel what you feel, but I'll share your experience with you. And this kind of, and heart types do it in a learned, socialized way. I mean, for heaven's sakes, you go on Twitter, the tone of Twitter is the same with a lot of people. They talk similarly. In Facebook, people talk similarly. Have you ever noticed, like, my parents' generation talks so different than mine, that talks so different than Gen X, that talks different from millennials? That's socialization. All right. So I have to, with the heart types, make that connection, because they're trying to connect with me. It's their home base is emotional intelligence. And they're wondering, how do I appear? Some of them will apologize for crying. I can't tell you how often people apologize for crying. You know, because sometimes when they come into their body, they're like, God, Leslie, I came in here in such a good mood. I sit down in your office, I start to cry in 5 minutes. What is it? And it's that we pause long enough for you to have an experience of yourself. And you're running all over, and you came here and you sat down and you're tired and feelings came up. Like, welcome to the human race. So heart types are constantly reading the other. They're reading and picking up clues. That's why, like, have you ever watched a 3 present? They're really good at sensing what's going on in the room. And they might shape shift in order to make the connection, but they've lost connection to their own feelings. So that's why it's the buried function of the heart type. Y'all are so good at this, the social mirroring. You see what's going on for others, right? But you lose touch with yourself. You lose touch with your own feelings. So I'm going to stop there. Any questions or Claire's or anything you want to bring up right there as I talk, after talking about the heart types?
Yeah, I see Lori's comment. I wonder if that's why it's so hard to record information and not have real audience to present to. There's no interaction.
Yeah. Because how am I doing? I have to tell you, I one time went to my daughter's school. She's a heart type. And I presented all 3 of my kids. I've got 1 kid in each center, and she's the youngest. And I said, so Rach, how did I do? She said, well, it was good, Mom. I loved it, but I don't ever do that close your eyes meditation thing again, because I couldn't see if everyone liked you. She's scanning the room to see how her mom is landing with her friends. That's what the heart type is doing all the time. So for me as a head type, this is a little easier. All right? Because a lot of data lives in here. But let me talk about the liability there. Okay? So now we've started, the feelings are in the body. Now the child has to be socialized. We have to make connection with the caregiver. Well, now we go up into the head, and it's like remote viewing starts to come online. We start to see pattern, language comes online. All right? We start to analyze, dissect, compare, contrast, measure, and we're reporting on our feeling experience. And my friend Claire, who helped with a lot of this, she's a body type. She said, Leslie, when I met you at our earliest Enneagram training in 2000, she said, you felt like a head on a stick. Now, she was an 8, so she was nice and clear about that, right? But I now know what she meant. I understood the data so clearly. And people who are spiritual directors or therapists, I one time went to a head type therapist, and I felt a little bit like a science experiment, right? He was a Jungian, so good at understanding Jungian therapy, right? But I didn't always feel the connection. And by this time, I'd been working with the Enneagram and that heart center, okay? Because head types are trying to investigate, explore, analyze. He was really good at analyzing my dreams and my unconscious mind. But I could feel myself. I felt like a little heart type, just kind of trying to make a connection with him. Trying to see, like, how am I doing? That's what heart types are doing all the time. But if I'm in my head, I'm really not in the experience anymore. I've had head types deliver some of the most painful news sitting on a panel. And other types, like the body types, might get overwhelmed by what they just shared. And the head type is in their head explaining it. Really emotional material without feeling overwhelmed by it. So what I have to become aware of, say if I'm writing a blog or a Facebook post, of the real people who are reading it. It's like I almost drop into my heart and connect. How are they reading it? How does this land with them? And my kids have given me that feedback. I have a son who's a head type who can say these things that, might hit the body type hard, right? But he's reporting an experience, but it comes sometimes, we head types, from a disembodied place. But evolutionarily, it's important because these collective feelings of what's happening right now, somebody needs to write about it. Somebody needs to share this evolutionary time we're in, where globally we're becoming aware of racism in a deeper, embodied way. People have known it in their heads, but watching that video, it was an experience of embodiment. So the head needs to write about it, social media, blogs, speeches, in an aggregate way. What are we learning here? And what I'm noticing, I was thinking about this, thinking about talking to you all today. Know what I'm noticing? I'm really stressed right now by not knowing the plan, like not knowing what's going to happen. I don't have a construct. We're in a evolutionary time of a real deep place of unknowing, and I don't like it. My maps aren't serving me in the way I want them to serve me. So what it's doing is it's calling me to a deeper level of what's happening in my body right now. And I'm noticing my body type husband and I, as we walk through all of this stuff together, my work has been to drop in of how is it for him? What's happening for him right now? Not that I can analyze him as a 9, but what's the lived experience right now to be in a business, travel, that's gone away? What's that like, the lived experience? Can I drop into my heart and connect rather than analyzing what's happening? Can you feel the difference? Now, you heart types, what you do is you get over involved in out there, right? And I just went and visited my sister who's a 2, and during pandemic, she's been alone. 3 months alone. And she's found her way back to herself, because when working with a 2, one of the things I notice, the other people's needs, and if y'all are 2, you get this. If they're in the building and in the room, you're sensing them. You're like a little need sensor all the time. It's almost like they have to not be there for you to come home to yourself. So when I'm working with a 2, I can feel them wanting to take care of me. And how am I doing? I'm doing well, Leslie. You'll be proud of me, right? That's that need to connect. The 3, I'm doing well. This is what I did. I did the assignment. I gave the 3. I said, you're going to love this. I'm giving you an assignment. Gives her something to do, to report back to our session. Like, I did it. Did my assignment. Good. It's a need, and it's only partial. So when I'm working with the heart types, we work with these different functions. Like, heart types need something to do, but if I just do that and I get seduced by the 2 wanting to please me as a 7, I like positive mirroring, y'all. And if I get seduced by a 2 wanting to please me, they might walk out of the session and I realize he has not come home to himself one time during the session. So that's why I work and dropping them into their bodies. If I've got a body type in the session, I'll tell you what, and I'm gonna pull this up for you all, because I think this might help you. Just a second. So they're feeling a lot of feelings, and what I have to look at is that when an 8 comes in to do grief work, they're coming straight. And I have to tell you, when I started my grief program, I got more 8s than any other type. Isn't that amazing? Because the avoidance is feeling weak, uncertain, but it was starting to get to them. But I have to work first with knowing how strong those feelings live in their bodies and mirror a lot of themselves. Like for body types, one of the ways I work with them is when they share something, really saying it back to them and having them feel like I get them in their body of how vulnerable this experience is that they're having right now. And once we can, that doing connection can happen, because what I have found is if I try to go to, new learning, like good luck in getting an 8, a 9, or a 1 off of their perspective of their initial, they have strong feelings. I like it. I don't like it. This is stupid. This is not stupid. This is worth my while. This is dumb and a waste of my time. They tend to feel things really strongly. And fair, unfair, they can get real tenacious in their position in 3 different ways. And if I try to come in with all sorts of facts, like my daughter in El Salvador, with a whole new construct that'll help you all fix it, she completely, it's like dismissed. So in evolutionarily, these types are important. And what's important to see is the 8s coming in and saying, I am strong, and their body is protected. The 9, it's I am peaceful. And when I'm working with 9s, one of the things I can notice is, are they merging with my agenda? Because 9s can merge with my agenda and walk away and, kind of be like, I don't want to do that thing that she told me to do, because it's not theirs. I have to, and as a 7, that's positive. We're all on the same page. Everything's okay. So I have to notice that inside of myself. So notice your own type's reactivity when you're with other people. What is your habit?
So that's a great place to pause for a minute too. What is your habit? Mm-hmm. And all of us, 9 styles, with 9 different kinds of nurture, and 9, or 27 or a million different kinds of nurture, or and ways that we've reacted with our free will based on our own nature, nurture. I think we want to pause for a minute and just notice what our own reactivity is. And even to the conversation, what's our reactivity to this conversation? Is there an opening and a sense of desire and longing and energy and curiosity? Or is there constriction that says, no, not me? And so just notice your own reactivity. And I think even in our closing moments, Leslie, I know that you're going to do some teaching at our conference in July. And how will you be working with what you've laid out for us here? What will that look like?
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that. Definitely, we're going to go into the 9 types and working with the 9 types on this. Like, for instance, Athena, you talked about, if 8s come in for grief work, where they were looking to shore themselves up. I actually think it was the opposite. I sometimes think there's some deeper sense of self. They wanted a place, a strong holding container. All right, so we'll have more time for questions like that. And what I'd like to ask is, if you've got a good inner observer, where you've been working on, your own awareness on some of this, on your type structure, I would love to have you volunteer for a panel. And what I'm going to be doing is, and we'll do some work ahead of time around that, because I'd love to ask you about, how does this live in you, so that it's real time live. Like, if you're a 3, like, how does this doing show up for you? When do you notice? Like, I love what Terry said, as a 3, I've been preaching via Zoom for 12 weeks. It's incredibly unsatisfying. He's not getting that mirroring. He's noticing that. That's something simple to understand, how that heart type needs mirroring. So yes, Claire, we'll be working with, I'll be giving kind of an overview of the 9 types and how to work on yourself. And it's very helpful work. It really changed how I worked with people. Mm-hmm. So that's what we'll be doing. And then we'll be listening to actual people talk about this. My sense, Claire, is I'd like to record the panels ahead of time, and I need to talk to you about that. Mm-hmm. So that they feel safe, because you want to know what, it's really hard doing it real time, especially if you're a heart type. I've noticed that it's really hard, because I can't see everybody, and we're not getting that comfortable field. And I found if it's recorded and they're just with me, it's a little bit easier. Yeah. So that's probably how I'm going to work with them, because it can't be in real time.
Beautiful. So Lori Tate's on the call, and she's our conference chair, and she's got her thumb up. So she's going to make sure that's something we can work with for you.
Yeah. And I also wanted to let you all know too, that as we're working, it's really important for you to understand, given the meditation at the beginning, is that you have an Enneagram bias. And what we're really learning a lot now is our social biases. Mm-hmm. We are swimming, and everybody is absorbing what's happening in the collective. And that's really important, just as a takeaway, to what's happening in the collective is going to impact you. We are interconnected. Yeah. And I'm going to be doing a group for women called Brave Spaces for Women. If you're interested in that, be sure you follow me on Instagram. I'll post it there. On Facebook, Leslie Hershberger. I decided to do that because I was starting to see some patterns of coming up with women, particularly in their spiritual lives. And then I'm going to be doing something called the Collective Wisdom Cohort. That is going to be, if you're interested in applying for that, because it is an application process. Unfortunately, that was going to start in the fall in person. Whole new, so it's not now. So yeah, and so if you're interested in doing a recorded panel with me where it just feels a little safer, please let me know. Leslie@lesliehershberger.com. I would love to have you sit on the panel. And if you think, I don't know myself well enough, some types are a little more vulnerable to thinking they're not worthy to sit on the panel. And Athena, I really want to answer your question about fours, but we're low on time. Yeah. Okay. So I will bring because the fours doing is a little tricky. You'll be happy to know, fours, that it's a little different on how you do doing.
On how you do doing. I love it. On how you do doing.
Yeah. And I really want to hear, you will love that. I've been teaching this centers approach for, since about 2013, 14. And the panels have been really good in terms, the body types especially say, I feel understood for the first time. Hmm.
Well, I thank you so much, Leslie. I'm aware of, your gift and your compassion, and I feel it in my body when I hear your voice, and I do want to say that even your wise words, that you would take a very slow, measured approach with particular styles and based on their experiences in life, because building trust with a person who works with you is the name of the call on someone who's doing this kind of work. It, as my sister, the nurse, used to say, don't become a nurse because, for any other reason than you're called, because you'll never be able to do it for the long haul if it's not a calling. And so to have people who want to work with types in these deep ways, we don't want it to be just, it's interesting. We don't want to be talking heads on a stick. We really do want to engage people at the soul level, because we have mirrored them, because we've developed trust. And so with that, I just want to say to all of my friends in the pandemic all around the circle, if there's one word, can you say one word, just one word all the way around the circle of something that is a takeaway for you, just one word. If you give a dissertation, Erica will mute you. But if you could just say one word And we'll go around and feel free to unmute yourself and just give that one word.
Acceptance.
Mm.
Notice.
Variety.
Assured.
Connected.
So let's just hold up that collective noticing and honor it and receive what has been given through Leslie, through the presence of one another. And may we welcome it and stay open to what might be an invitation for the future.
Claire, can I add something real quick here? Do you mind?
Sure.
What I noticed when when people typed something, and when you said something back to me, just hearing those words, I could feel my system relaxing. Okay, so I'm a head type. I still need connection. So we don't want to reduce these into this one thing. What we want to just notice what's the lead thing and the avoided thing. And it's so, yeah, we've got all three centers, and the work when working with yourself and with others is to bring them into into balance. All right. So that we can see like what's missing right now. Like, what am I underusing? Like for you heart types, I'm underusing connection to myself right now. Okay, so I just wanted to say that it really was such a big hit. I noticed when all of you said something, when people said something, just felt like, my system started to relax. I could feel my breathing change.
Well, and you have a beautiful 4 heart center in the harmony triad, and so and you want to be with all of it, and so I'm so grateful. So my friends, we are glad you've been with us, and if there's anything you need after the Midday Cafe, you can contact Leslie, you can contact us at Great Lakes, and if there are questions about our conference or any of the other offerings, we're here to be in community with one another. Thanks for the thumbs up. There you go. Don't you love that? 2 thumbs up from Morally. Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Leslie.
All right, thanks everybody. You take care.
Peace
Thank
be
you for
with
having
you.
me. Peace to all of you too. Bye-bye.